Everyone, and welcome on into the Betting Pros Week 8 NFL sides and totals preview as we get ready here for another week of NFL action. I'm Tom, and as always, joining me here, it's Matt and Pat. And guys, oh man, it's another exciting week. It's a big game for the Jets, which means this is finally the week that I just absolutely want to stop watching football altogether here and yeet myself into a river. But we've got plenty of great action to get to, including apparently a barn burner of a game on ESPN Plus right now over in London that I'm sure is enrapturing millions of fans around the world. But right now, guys, let's talk about some of the games that haven't kicked off just yet, starting here with a very ancient rivalry, the Eagles and the Steelers. A lot of familiarity between these two teams because they were briefly the same team. Matt, where are you going in this one?
Yeah, looking at, well, by the way, that game going on in London, I wish we could have talked about it. I'm saying that somewhat facetiously, but I did like the under in that game. At least it looks like the under might be the winning side there right now. But yeah, with this game, Eagles at Steelers, I mean, I hate laying 10.5 points, but I feel I'm compelled to do it here. This is a Mike Tomlin spot where, okay, sure, as an underdog, I could totally see him actually just winning this game outright. You know, wilder things have happened, but Jalen Hurts 8-3-1 against the spread at home. And I think the Eagles, their defense is just too good relative to what we're going to see out of the Steelers pass offense. The Steelers, I think, have a really good group of pass catchers. You know, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens. That's a really good trio of wide receivers. Pat Freiermuth is emerging. Najee Harris is a pretty good receiving back for a guy of his size, but Kenny Pickett has just destroyed the upside that we might have expected in that offense. He has 3.9 adjusted yards per attempt, and maybe one day he will be a really good functional NFL quarterback, but he is definitely not there yet. So I just look at this, the Steelers offense, and I'm wondering, how are they going to move the ball against this Eagles defense, which is top 6 against the pass in dropback EPA, dropback success rate, and pass DVOA. And I think the answer is they won't be able to move the ball against that defense, especially at cornerback. I think there is a big edge that the Eagles have here. They have James Bradbury on the perimeter. I think he's physical enough to match up with Claypool and Pickens. They have Darius Slay, who's quick enough to match up with Deontay Johnson. And Avonte Maddox in the slot has become one of the better interior pass defenders in the league over the past few seasons. He's got a really elite combination of speed and quickness, which I think a lot of the slot receivers need to have in today's NFL. So the Eagles, I think, you know, on offense, we know what they can do. I think they're explosive enough to get a big double-digit lead in the first half, and then I think their defense is good enough to help them keep it in the second half.
I'm only a tiny bit worried about the fact that the Steelers seem to be just showing up against opponents that they have no business being in games against. And the Eagles, for me, they have let a few teams in the back door. That's what's worrying me about this game. But I agree with you. I do feel like you might have to just go Eagles or pass.
I feel a lot better knowing that TJ Watt is not playing in this game. I was a little bit worried in the middle of the week when there were reports of him practicing, but he's not coming back for this game. So I feel much better. That was like the main doubt that I had.
You're going to need the big second quarter from the Eagles. This is a crazy stat. The Eagles have outscored their opponents 112-27 in the second quarter this year. They're actually getting outscored by 29 points in all other quarters, and they're undefeated. That's wild.
That is absolutely nuts. And they've been able to, even with that, they've been playing from ahead most of the time. They haven't played a team that's going to really make them work for it just yet.
Yeah, I mean, we will see. This is a Tomlin spot where I could absolutely see regretting it. It's just like, yep, of course, Mike Tomlin gets his team ready for this game. But I have this around 11. I have this at 11.75. So I do see value even at 10.5 off of the key number of 10. I loved it much more 10. I would still bet it at 10.5.
I think if we hadn't just seen them against the Bucs, I'd be more worried. But that actually makes me feel a little better in this spot. Because it makes me go, okay, well, they had their game, they had their signature win, and now they can settle back down to a tanking season here. Yeah. But I think it's counterintuitive where you want to adjust because of that, and you shouldn't. So I think that I'm riding with you on this one, but I'm not laying 10.5 points. I'm sorry, Matt. But Pat, from 10.5 down to 1 here. The 49ers and the Rams. I can't believe that you are actually looking at betting on this game. You are a braver man than I, my friend. Where are you going in this one?
I'm going the way this rivalry has gone of late, Tom. I'm going with the 49ers here. And so Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan got to their respective coaching posts at the same time in 2017. And early on, Sean McVay had the better of this rivalry. But since it has mostly been all 49ers, the 49ers have beaten the Rams in 7 straight regular season games. The only time the Rams snuck in with a win there was a pretty good time in last year's playoffs, winning by a field goal. But really, the 49ers have just dominated this. And as far as this year's matchup, this second matchup, while the 49ers have already beaten the Rams once, I think they're going to do it again just because the Rams' offensive line is so bad. It's the one aspect of this game I just can't get past. Like this, as much respect as I have for Sean McVay as an offensive play caller and architect, like he can't do anything with this offense because of how dysfunctional that offensive line has been. And I don't think they're going to be able to do any business against a good 49ers defense, even though the 49ers do have a few key absences. I think Greenlaw is going to be missing from this game. But still, as multi-dimensional as the 49ers are on offense, I think they're going to be able to do enough to outscore Rams offense that's just been mired in quicksand really all year.
No Debo, no problem for you in this battle of the two most overrated coaches in the league, in my opinion. I have to agree with you. I think that the 49ers are the spot just because, like you mentioned, the dominance that they've had and the fact that this Rams offensive line is terrible.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's just completely dysfunctional.
Yeah. All right, the next game up here. Oh, guys, are we doing this again? The Saints and the Raiders. For both of you here, you are going with New Orleans, Matt. You're getting 1.5 at home here. You're riding with the red rifle.
Yeah, this is, I was the kiss of death pick for the show here with Fitz and I both on the same side here. But yeah, I mean, this was one that we identified early, like, last week when we were looking at projections, look ahead, we were like, okay, I guess we're just both going to be on the Saints this week. Derek Carr, love fading him as a favorite. He's 15-25-1 as a favorite. Andy Dalton, the red rifle, TCU alum, by the way, 41-31-2 against the spread as an underdog. And I think it's the Saints rush offense against the Raiders run defense. Obviously the Saints missing wide receivers, but that's been the case for the past few weeks. I kind of doubt number 1 tight end Adam Troutman. I doubt that he's going to play, but again, I don't know if that matters. The Saints, they've had 31 points per game over the past month with Andy Dalton at quarterback, and it's because of the running game. They have one of the league's best running attacks, and the Raiders are mediocre against the run. They often allow opponents to stay on schedule and sustain drives on the ground. The Saints here, top 3 in both run success rate and rush DVOA, and the Raiders here, number 17 and number 20, respectively, in those statistics. So, and also the Raiders, they're exploitable against the air too, right? Like they're bottom 6 in both dropback EPA per play and dropback success rate. Given the pass catching injuries that the Saints have, I doubt they're going to be throwing all that much, but when they need to, they at least have a decent matchup to go against here. In the Thursday look ahead market, this was Saints -1.5. I still think they should be favored. I have them as slight favorites here at -0.75 points here. So I will be betting it.
I'm worried about some of the Saints injuries, like especially Lattimore not being back there really does hurt this team, but that's not deterring you either, Pat.
That is the one way that I think this bet could go awry, Tom, is if the Raiders are totally able to exploit the no Marshawn Lattimore, no Bradley Roby in the Saints secondary. So that's problematic. And this Raiders pass offense has been pretty decent, but you've got a lot of guys in that Raiders pass offense that have had like some physical issues of their own. Derek Carr has been dealing with a back issue. Devontae Adams apparently had a bad case of the flu. Mac Hollins has a heel issue. Darren Waller's a hamstring issue. So yeah, that's a concern, but the Raiders are 3-6 against the spread in their last 9 road games. The Massey Power Massey Peabody power rankings say that on a neutral field, the Raiders should be favored by about 1. And, it's in New Orleans. So I think it's kind of odd that the Raiders are favored in this game. Yeah. And another thing, I think the Saints are kind of undervalued because they've committed 16 turnovers this year. And we saw them pretty much outplay the Cardinals last week. But, 2 quick pick sixes sort of ruined them in that game. And, turnovers, maybe not when you have Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton as your top 2 quarterbacks. But for the most part, they're largely a function of luck. And the Saints have had some really bad luck in the turnover department. So I think that's got them somewhat undervalued. I really like this spot at home for them.
Go check out our show from Tuesday of this week, by the way, if you want to get a more in-depth breakdown of the Massey Peabody power rankings, because we had Rufus Peabody on to talk about them and a bunch of other great things. Great conversation. So go check that out after this video, guys, as you get ready for your NFL Sunday here. And real quick, I know it's not a game on our rundown, but Kyle Salva in the chat, he wants to know, he says, love the show, always great advice. Any thoughts on Houston at home? Real quick, guys. Any interest in that game?
Fitz, I think we're talking about that game a little bit later, but do you have any thoughts on the side here, especially now that we have no Ryan Tannehill in this game?
Boy, no, it's a stay away from me. I'm totally, I don't see any value on either side, to be honest.
Yeah. So this number, I'm seeing it at 1 right now. Houston favored by 1. I still think that there's a little bit of value here on Tennessee. I think it's an overreaction. I think Malik Willis, pretty good runner. We saw what he was able to do in the preseason. I think it's wide variance here. So I think if I'm doing anything with that, maybe I take them on the money line. But I don't know. I don't think the drop from Tannehill to Malik Willis is as severe as we would maybe expect, given how raw Malik Willis is. I think that running ability will actually help them sustain drives.
I'm actually,
go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm actually leaning the other way in both of these games, the Saints Raiders game and this one. The Raiders game, that's so much of a coin flip here. I think if Derek Carr was healthy, I'd be much more ready to bet it, but I'm going to stay away. Too many unknowns. With this one, purely gut feeling, I think that this is one of those spots for Houston. They played this team tough even when they were terrible, and I think this Houston team is maybe a step above that this year. But that's just I'm going on that division's weird and they do weird things and play each other weird.
The wide range of outcomes type of game.
Absolutely.
It is. But Mike Vrabel as a 1-point dog to Lovie Smith. Think about that for a second. That's why I can't take Houston.
Yeah. Vrabel as a dog is someone I never would want to bet against.
Yeah.
Except I'm doing it next week.
Now, here we go, Matt. I'm going to have to roast you for this one. Patriots 2.5 versus the Jets here. You're going with New England.
Yeah, I mean, Timothy, for your last show here, of course I'm going to be picking against your Jets. It's it's old time's sake.
Hey, historically very profitable situation.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Belichick coming off of a loss for his career, 50-22-1 against the spread, and Robert Saleh 2-5 against the spread within division. I think this pass defense for the Patriots going against I'm just going to say kindly anemic pass offense for the Jets, I think that's the difference in this game. And the Jets offense is top 5 in just one efficiency metric. That's rush EPA per play. I don't see that being representative of what they can do moving forward, given that they are now without Breece Hall, who is, in the first half of the season, one of the most dynamic runners that we were seeing. And then also they're without Elijah Vera Tucker, who was, their best offensive line run blocker. And so missing those two guys, I think they are without significant juice in the running game. And the thing is, on a down-to-down basis in terms of success rate, they weren't all that good in terms of being able to consistently move the ball on the ground. It's just that they were relying on Breece Hall to rip off 60, 70-yard touchdowns. And obviously we're not going to see that anymore. So I think without the assistance of the running game, we're going to see them need to rely more on Zach Wilson. And I'm just skeptical that they're going to have success with that. The Patriots defense, top 6 in every key pass efficiency metric, and the Jets pass offense, no better than average in any of those metrics. So, if they can't run the ball, And if they can't pass the ball, I really don't see how they should be able to put up the points to cover in this spot. So I will be on the Patriots, even though what we saw last week on Monday Night Football was disgusting.
All week, Jets Twitter has been focused on last year's game, the blowout, the 54-10 or whatever it was. All of the coaches have been saying, "Oh, we didn't like that last year. Like we're looking for some payback here." This is 1,000% a spot where the Jets fall flat and ruin their season right here. It's all leading right up to it. I've seen this movie too many times. But Pat, Panthers and Falcons, the current number is 4 here. Are you walking with PJ?
Yes, I am, Tom. Last week when I was watching the Falcons game and saw AJ Terrell go down with a hamstring injury, I immediately thought, like, oh man, I'm betting whoever the Falcons are playing next week. Like, their secondary is so shredded. Then I looked and saw it was the Panthers, and I had to think about it for a second. But yeah, I still like the Panthers, especially, hey, we saw them look pretty spunky, obviously, last week against the Buccaneers. I think they're getting a little bit of a, I don't know, like a confidence bump post Matt Rule. So, yeah, I think Walker is good enough to take advantage of just an absolutely decimated secondary for the Falcons. The Falcons were dead last in defensive DVOA even before the Terrell injury. And it's not just Terrell. Casey Hayward is on IR. Cornerback D. Alford might not play. He's questionable this week. I think he's going to play, but he's hurting. Safety Jalen Hawkins is out. Like, they are just so undermanned in the secondary, even though it's PJ Walker at quarterback, even though it's Ben McAdoo calling the plays, two not exactly inspiring figures there. I think they are going to victimize this Falcons secondary. I think that's kind of the key thing. And the Falcons, this is another instance, I think, of turnovers maybe skewing the perception of a team. Like, the Falcons have come out pretty well on the turnover side, and maybe that's to be expected. They run the ball and they've had a lot of takeaways, but it's a function of good luck. I think, it doesn't make me confident that I'm going against a team that's been 6-1 against the spread this season. But I think this is a really good spot for the Panthers, even though it's kind of a small spread with the Panthers on the road.
Maybe this is finally the DJ Moore game, Matt. I know you've been waiting forever for one of these, but I'm completely with you. I think that the 6-1 against the spread record for the Falcons is a little overrated. Like, they had some good games early in the season, but 4-point favorites here. The offense has been struggling a bit. The defense, like you said, is decimated. I like the Panthers.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to add one more thing. I mean, we know how one-dimensional the Falcons are on offense. They run the ball even when they're way down. And the Panthers are 13th in DVOA against the run. They're actually pretty respectable on D, and especially against the run.
Yeah, not a great matchup for the running game, Pat, as you said there, for the Falcons. And, DJ Moore, he did have a decent game last week. Maybe he does even more this week. And I got to say, I mean, the look ahead was 7. It opened at 6.5. It's moved to 4.5. It's 3.5 at some books. Like, Fitz is clearly on the right side of this game here.
Yeah, I'm completely with you here, Fitz. And guys, you really should be with the Betting Pros app, because if you want free picks and sports betting advice, bettingpros.com has you covered with tips from over 150 experts to make it easy for you to cash out. Download the app to get sports betting alerts. You'll get notified of favorable bets based on line movements, consensus picks from the most accurate experts, and vetted systems in play. Betting Pros monitors all of the major sports books, most accurate experts, and top systems to identify the best betting opportunities. So download today in the Apple or Google Play stores. And guys, we move on now into the total market here. And the Raiders Saints, the number sits at 49.5 for them in this game.
Did Tom just drop off?
We just lost Tom.
All right. Well, I'm going to scoot over to, let's see here. I'm going to scoot. Yeah, this is the better.
I do not know. I do not know what happened there. All of a sudden I got an error has occurred and it wasn't your fault. And I'm like, oh boy. But
it's totally your fault, Tom. We're going to blame it on you.
agreed.
Okay. So talking about this Raiders Saints game, we talked about it earlier. Normally, if you like an underdog, you probably lean towards the under. If there are fewer points scored in a game, it's easier for the underdog to cover. But one of the reasons I like the Saints is because their offense has still been good with Andy Dalton at quarterback. And if they beat the Raiders, or they cover, it's because they can keep up with them, not stop them. And, the Saints defense is not what it used to be, as we talked about, multiple cornerbacks out in this game. So I think both teams put up points. The Saints, they're an NFL high 5-2 to the over. So I do like this spot there. I have this projected at 50.6.
I'm completely with you. This one feels like a shootout here for me. Pat, how about you? Because the Giants Seahawks total 44.5. I mean, I get that the Giants, they're a run heavy offense, but this feels low.
It does feel low. And they produced 436 yards of offense last week against a decent Jacksonville defense. So
the Seahawks defense not decent.
No, it's not decent. And Seattle, I think people have noticed, has been playing in like one shootout after another the last 5 weeks. The total average of points in a Seahawks game over their last 5 games is 60.4. 4 of those 5 have gone over 50 points. One produced 60 points, one produced 93. So yeah, they've been playing in a lot of, track meets, and I don't know, maybe the possibility of rain is holding down this total a little bit, but I checked the forecast, light rain predicted throughout the game. I think rain tends to be overstated as a factor in point scoring. And, there's not going to be a lot of wins. So I think it's wheels up for both of these offenses. And, I think even without Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf at full capacity, although both guys are expected to play, they're both banged up. But, I think even if he's using his, 7 tight ends, Geno is going to be able to make this offense go. And, Ken Walker has been terrific for them. So I think both teams are going to move the ball today.
When you have an elite quarterback like Geno Smith, I'm never really worried about the offense struggling here.
Former Jet quarterback. Yeah.
Former Jet quarterback. By the way, Mark Sanchez commentating his games is just the greatest thing, because he's clearly just completely flummoxed at what is going on and what he's seeing. It's fantastic. But the next game up here, the Bills-Packers under at 47. Friedman, that's where you're going in this one.
Yeah, the thesis here is pretty simple. I don't think the Packers are going to do their part to drive this game to the over. The Bills defense, incredibly stout. We have them ranked with the number 1 defense in the league in our Fantasy Pros unit power rankings. Front to back, they're strong. It's hard to score on them. And the Packers, they have issues on the offensive line. We don't know if David Bakhtiari is playing. Left guard Elgin Jenkins, who's kind of moved around the offensive line. It's not a certainty that he's playing in this game. We definitely know that they're without number 1 wide receiver Allen Lazard. The Bills don't entirely shift in the second half, but they also they're not nearly as aggressive in the second half once they get a big lead on offense. So I think we see that play out here. Maybe I think there's actually value to waiting to bet this game during the game. I could see the live total pushing up into the 50s in the first half as points are scored, and then coming back down in the second half as both offenses grind down the clock. Bills games are 5-1 to the under. I have this projected at 45.5. So I do like the under here at 47.
I'm completely with you here in this spot. Man, it's so weird. Aaron Rodgers is a double-digit dog. Feels weird, feels wrong. But going back to that Titans-Texans game, speaking of games that feel weird and wrong, the total here is set at a mammoth 39 points. This is 2 bad defenses to go with the bad offenses. I feel like we can get some scoring, Pat.
I do too, Tom. And Freedman talked about this before, like the switch from Tannehill to Malik Willis. Do we really think that's going to be that detrimental to the Titans? I don't at all, man. If anything, I'm kind of excited about it. And look, we know Malik Willis is not going to throw for 300 yards today. That's just not really in the range of outcomes. But I think he could run for 100 plus. And I'm kind of fascinated to see what this Titans offense is going to look like with Willis running the show and Henry in the backfield against a Texans defense that is dead last in DVOA against the run, was absolutely garbage against the run last year. Like, this team cannot defend the run at all. And you are going to have like that RPO capability with Malik Willis. We know what that does, freezing linebackers, making those holes a little bit wider for Henry. I mean, like, I think they're going to rip off some explosive plays in the running game today. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, the Titans are giving up 7.9 yards per pass attempt. Their secondary's been pretty flammable this year. Like, I think even though there's no Nico Collins for the Texans, I think they're going to be able to do some business through the air against the Titans with Brandon Cooks and I guess Chris Moore and Philip Dorsett. Not an inspiring passing attack, but I think they can do enough to push this game off a really low total. And what was it before? Like 40.5 with Tannehill? And it's dropped 1.5. Like, I actually feel, much better about the Titans offense, to be honest.
By the way, guys, quick breaking news. The Jets-Patriots game has officially gone to 3.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, the final game that we have up here, you guys are both on the same one. The Bears and the Cowboys total at 42.5. Matt, are you going over or under this one?
Yeah, I'm going under. We have the Cowboys tied with the Bills for the number 1 defense in the league. They are 5-2 to the under. The Bears, I doubt, will be as effective on offense this week as they were last week. But the Bears, they have a decent defense as big home favorites. I think the Cowboys look to run the ball, control the clock, and I think that plays to the under.
Pat, how about you?
2 teams better on defense than on offense. I mean, Dallas is number 2 in defensive DVOA, 18th in offensive DVOA. And although we do expect that offense to get better with Dak Prescott under center, like, still not totally explosive. And then the Bears are number 15 defensive DVOA, very respectable, and 31st in offensive DVOA. They functioned well against the Patriots the last time we played them. The Patriots had a tough time stopping the run, but a lot of teams have been able to stop the run, and we know that offensive line is kind of bad. It hasn't protected. As run heavy as the Bears have been, their sack rate is still through the roof, even though teams have to be expecting run at this point. The one thing that makes me slightly nervous about this is that I don't know. I don't expect the Cowboys to be super run heavy with no Ezekiel Elliott. There are only so many carries they can give Tony Pollard, you would think, and he's being backed up by a guy who was just promoted from the practice squad. So, like, I feel like they cannot be as run heavy as they were last week against Detroit, but at the same time, they've got a bye next week. So maybe they can be. Maybe they can give Tony Pollard 20, 25 carries.
Please do it. My fantasy team would love to see that happen. I like what the Bears are starting to do now that they've realized Justin Fields might actually be talented and they should design an offense to utilize his talents. But yeah, this Cowboys defense seems like a tough task for me. I would lean to the under with you guys. But before we get out of here, we need a money line underdog parlay, a nice little 2-teamer to give us a good plus money sweat for the day. Matt, who do you offer up for us here in the spot?
Cardinals, highly original, going with the Cliff Kingsbury road underdog here. Like, this is a spot. Vikings are an inflated 5-1. The Cardinals have been better on defense over the past few weeks, better on offense with Hopkins back. Cliff Kingsbury as a road underdog, 13-7 on the money line with an 80% return on investment. That is per Action Network. The Vikings, home favorites off a bye at the top of their division. Like, a clear spot for them to be overvalued. So I will be taking the Cardinals and just praying that Kyler can overcome the Cliff Kingsbury-ness of that organization.
I'm with you. I think that we have to watch out, but the good news is it's a road game, so he probably couldn't bring his PlayStation, and Call of Duty's had a glitchy launch anyway. Pat, who do you have?
I don't think you can go wrong with a play caller money line parlay of Cliff Kingsbury and Ben McAdoo. That's the way to go. It's so I'm adding the Panthers onto Freedman's Cardinals call. They're plus 170. And we talked about it, just how decimated the Falcons pass defense is right now. Like, their secondary, I mean, they are running out some real scrubs back there. So I think they're going to have a hard time stopping the Panthers, as strange as that is to say. I think the Panthers can do enough to pull out a second straight victory here.
All right. I'm with you here. I like the parlay. I like the plays for the day, guys. That is going to do it for us. It is time to go watch some football or go back to bed if you're on the West Coast and don't want to watch Denver and the Jaguars, which I do not fault you for. Guys, that is going to do it for Matt, for Pat, and myself. Best of luck this weekend, and let's cash some tickets.